Hey, Basslightning here. Welcome back to my home studio, my humble abode in upstate Vermont, USA. And I am doing a workshop today. No, I'm not trying to teach. There are plenty of online teaching videos out there for guitar, bass, drums, and everything. Really just showing my methods for how I do progression building and just to share more of the inner workings of how I do things here and when I'm doing my songwriting and skill building and all of that stuff kind of in a package. So I'll just touch on some of that, and let me get the cam set up. Should be pretty good right about here. That looks pretty good right there. How about that, huh? Welcome, welcome. So, let me get my stuff set here. Everything's all set, but not my volume's up or anything. And I don't have my channel switcher. Got to take my channel switcher out so I can actually reach it. Okay, there we go. How about that? So, I'm just going to go into some of my methods, as I just said in the introduction. And it's really, there's no real lesson plan here or anything like that. I'm not a guitar teacher, folks. I don't have a music degree. I just have a lot of experience playing professionally in bands for the last bazillion years and learning music. And basically I had 4 years jazz band at the Mount Anthony Jazz Band High School in Bennington, Vermont, where I went to high school. Placed second in the nationals down south with not just myself, but the jazz band, the symphonic band. We did really well in the nationals because we had a lot of talent in that band. And Pat Whitman won the Best Drummer Award there in Busch Gardens, which was really cool. He still has the plaque, I believe, yeah, like all these years later. Pat, you rock, man. Great drummer. Great all around. He's a good songwriter, a good lyricist, and he's a good guy. Old friend of mine, and he's a good drummer. We always worked well together. So, anyways, I took, what was it? A year of music theory. It was just theory 1. And, and 4 years of jazz band. Of course, my instructor there, well, I had 2 instructors and a professor. They all gave me knowledge for the 4 years I was in a jazz band. So I only technically took a year of theory, but I have 4 years of training, sight reading and all that. And I don't really use a lot of sight reading skills anymore. I mean, I learned the basics, in treble and bass clef, and enough to get by and follow along. But I was certainly never what I'd consider a sight reading expert, but I could do it, enough to get out there and I don't know. I've always done better in rock bands where we're not reading music and we're just playing parts that we rehearsed. That's been my better skill actually than actual, theory knowledge, which I do have, but anyways, enough explaining myself. This is basically what we're doing. Today I'm just showing you the inner workings of my creative instincts, impulses, and what I do to construct songs. And I'm not taking specific, there might be some parts you recognize from other songs or whatever. I'm just going to use some examples. I'm not trying to present any new material or anything like that. So we'll just see what we can get my volume set. So let me get my dirty volume here. pretty good. Yeah, so anyways, when just to start out with the very basics of what I do as far as how I approach things, um, is, you know, for one, you got to have inspiration. That's number one. It doesn't matter how much technical theory knowledge you have, or if you got a music degree, that's great. But if you don't have inspiration, if you don't have creative imagination, and, you know, other things aligned like feel for your instrument, if you don't have good feel, it's not going to matter how much knowledge you have. You're going to sound like a robot. It's simple as that. It doesn't matter who it is. I've explained this on other videos too, but, you know, my viewpoint, I'm not saying that is fact and that's the way it is, or trying to tell you to think like I think. Not at all. This is just my impression. This is my workshop, so that's the way I look at it. So in the creative process, we'll get right into it because I've already spent enough on monologue and I don't want to waste a lot of time. So I'll just stick with the framework in B. It's just whatever. So if I'm writing a progression in B, I'm always looking for a bass note in there to, it's called counterpoint in classical music, where the bass line moves in one direction and the melody moves in another direction, yet they complement each other. So that's where I really got the idea from. It's a classical music derivative, even though I'm not playing classical music. So, but it's that same, I don't know what you would call it, technical process. I don't know, whatever. But so I'm looking to change up the bass line, bass root note. So see, now I just changed to G and then down to E minor in the bass. So by doing that, if I was playing bass to this, that's what I would be playing. And that's where you get your counterpoint, is the bass line is moving in a different direction of the actual melody line in the music. So you can do that in a lot of, I do that all the time. Like if I'm going into a C to A minor 11 progression, it's the same thing. Basically, it's the same counterpoint process. But see where it's, if my tonic is C, and now you're changing the root chord, you know, the root tonic, which is the root, into another key, and during the progression within, if you're looking on the stave on sheet music, it would be measures down the line, and when it's down, 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 you'd already be in another measure by the time you're in A minor 11, you know. So that being said, I'm just showing you an example that that's really the same. Now, there's people out there that say, yeah, I know all this, yeah. But then when I see them play it, they don't really play it right. So you can say you know it all. Chances are you probably don't. You know, you never will. It's a life study, you know. So anyways, so when I'm doing the counterpoint progressions, which I do in a lot of my songs, if you hear that, listen to my chord patterns and stuff while I'm singing, or if I'm just doing, you know, song skeletons or whatever, and I do a lot of that kind of counterpoint technique. And why I like it is that I'm not just playing straightforward, 5 chords, bar chords, or complete chords. Like if I'm in D or D minor. Or D major, whatever. It's not just, sometimes you want that because, again, 90% of my music is vocal orientated, so I'm always supporting what's going on, lyrically, within the context of the feel of the song. That's another important thing. If it's a funky, chunky rhythm, then I'm going to be approaching it differently than if it's a straightforward rocker that I'm intending for, like, rock radio or whatever, So, instead of just I will do. And I'll use open position too, Get a lot more chiminess and melodic tone out of the open position chords. But I don't always use them because when you get into open position chords, then it might not have the sound that I'm looking for a particular piece, or a section. It may not be the whole song. It may just be something in the framework of that, of those measures in that particular part of a song. So if that makes sense to you, that's my thought process in that approach, basically. So now when you add distortion and you do the same counterpoint process, So now I'll try it the non-counterpoint way, and you can see the difference back to back between those two progressions, which are the same progression, but without the counterpoint technique, it makes quite a difference in the... it still sounds good, but the feel of the piece, the feel of the song, the vibe it gives through that feel and connection that you're making with your notes, projecting it out to your audience, you know. So I'll do it the like non-counterpoint way, not to sound like it's a worse way or worse method, because it's fine. It just depends on what you're looking for in a particular piece that you're creating, you know. So here we go. I'll just do it. I still did a little bit at the end because I couldn't help it. I just had to. But you can see the difference in... Or you should be able to hear the difference. I know I did from in here. The difference in the two methods playing the same chord progression. That's basically what I'm showing. And I do that pretty much all the time, most of the time. That's what I'm always doing. I'm never thinking just, okay, well, let's just... Sometimes I'm thinking that way in terms of, you know, let's just play the straight out chords, because again, that vocal supportive mental framework needs to be there if that's the feel of the song, especially if you're working with another songwriter or you're working with a band who's putting together a song. Then of course you can't just, you know, bulldoze everything. I mean, obviously there has to be some compromise there if you're working with other people. Me as a solo artist, which is why I like doing this better than working in a band, just because I don't have to compromise with anybody. I can just do whatever I want, and I get the gratification knowing that I've presented material out there on my virtual stage that my heart and soul are in, and that's exactly how I wanted to play it. Whenever I play in a band, playing in a band anytime, at any point in my entire career, ever, it has always been a compromise, probably 90% of the time, you know, because I'm always working with a songwriter, another front man, somebody who's in control, who just wants to direct, and this is the way you play it, and that's it. You know, so, and that's fine as long as they have gigs and they're paying me. That's what's called being a professional. You just do what you do, and you're the puppet on the string. You know, you're on the end of the strings, and somebody else is the puppet master. You know, that's just the way it goes. I mean, you think, you know, Taylor Swift's bass player is complaining, making 40 grand a week or whatever? I mean, and, you know, he has to play things a certain way. No, you don't do riffs in that song. No, this is the way we play it. We're just doing eighth notes in this section. When they do all their arrangements at that level, who cares? You're getting paid a ton of money. Just do what they want. But as far as personal satisfaction as an artist, not really. That's just personal satisfaction and making good money playing out into big audiences, which is great too. But you see the difference there? There's personal indulgence, and then there's professional requirements. Those are a lot of times two completely different things, and that's just the way it goes. So, you know, that being said, I mean, that's really the difference, and why I enjoy doing the studio work. Not to get totally into my self-analysis, you know, introspection for you all. Again, I've already done this on other videos, but you know, that controls my approach as well. That controls my approach in where I'm writing stuff that's just from the heart, my soul, my skills all together coming out to you, you know, in a package. Whether I'm using my drummer or not, most of the time I am, because my timing isn't perfect, my tempo isn't perfect. And plus it makes the song better to jam along to. It's not just a guitar and me. It's you know, there's something else happening there, you know. Trying to play the part of 2-3 different people, you know. So anyways, so the same idea with the counterpoint exists in a lot of different things that I do, as I've already explained. So I'll go into some other another progression I've been working on, and this may not be perfect. I'm not trying for it to be perfect. I am just playing it and explaining it the way I see, with my vision and what I do as the chief songwriter here at Darkanica. And that's about it. I'm just going to try a couple things, and I'm going to compare two different solos to see what works for a particular part. So I'm just going to pick it. These aren't necessarily my songs. These are just patterns that I'm going to work from. See, now, in the midst of that progression, that's just something I'm trying. That obviously was not a perfect solo by any means, or what I, but I switched, instead of, soloing off from C, I switched it over to E. So, and it's only in that moment. That's why I'm playing the progression, because I'm by myself. I don't have somebody to play along with here, So, show you the progression, and then now I'm going to try a little different solo approach. So, which solo did you like better? I think the second one. Not only because there was more involved in it with the different progressions, it wasn't so simplistic, but it made better sense with the key change, or with the chord changes to it just, and that's another thing that goes along with. I did a video, I don't know, it was like a year ago. It's called Taste Can't Be Taught. And there's a lot of truth in that. Taste cannot be taught. I don't care what people say out there. That's your opinion. It's your right to believe what you think is right. Taste cannot be taught. You can have all the technical knowledge and all the, you know, expert sight reader and all this stuff. And if you don't have good feel and good taste, you're going to sound like a robot. And that's just the way it is. Some of your best guitar players in history didn't really have a lot of theory training. They just had a real good feel for that guitar. They're playing that Les Paul, playing that Strat, whatever, you know. And that's just the God's honest truth, man, and that's just reality. So I'm not saying knowledge is a bad thing, certainly not. Learn as much as you can always, but always keep in mind that it's more important to develop yourself as a player before you flood yourself with the world of mathematics, you know what I mean? And then just learn your basics, of course, you know, but you build off from that. So what I do is I run them in parallel. I run knowledge, you know, left brain, right brain, you know, knowledge, feel, knowledge, feel, together. And you learn how to adjust certain things after a while, you know. It's like in terms of what you're selecting. So if I'm doing a solo, you know, if I'm doing a solo, an A, just to use that for an example, I'm always looking at the feel of the song. Always. It's even when I'm on bass guitar, it's the same thing. It's exact same concept, even though it's a different instrument, they're very similar in a lot of ways. Just like drums and bass are very similar in a lot of ways. Rhythmic instruments, where guitar and keyboard are more similar because they're melodic instruments. You know, just kind of the way it is. So if I'm on stand-up bass, I'm not really thinking much differently than I would be on electric bass, other than it's a different animal in terms of how it plays and your positioning on the neck, and it's fretless usually, and if you're playing with a bow, obviously that's a different feel too. So it's, again, it goes back to that feel thing. Yes, you got to know where all the notes are, of course. If somebody says, oh, we're in the key of, you know, F sharp, go to F sharp. Not, oh, where's that? You know, you got to know where all the notes are in the neck. That's number one. That's the first thing you should learn before you even learn anything else, which is what I did way back long time ago, you know, in the time of cavemen, you know. So I'm going to go into some more stuff here, and then I'll explain what my thought process is. So, very powerful chord pattern there, especially in the open position. So as you can see, during the midst of that solo, I actually changed the framework of what I was doing. Now, the first part, I was trying a pentatonic thing, and it just didn't sound right. Like you can see me kind of pull out of it, go back into the chord pattern. I wanted to show that process. I'm not trying to do a perfect performance here. I'm trying to show you my method and process. So that solo I did not like at all, the first part of that solo. I said, okay, this isn't going to work. I'm just trying a pentatonic climb and then stepping up into the next key to do a declining pattern to come back into the tonic key, which in this case was G, obviously. But it just, I don't know, it just didn't sound right. It was like, I wasn't playing out of key. It just didn't sound good for that solo, for that chord pattern. So you can see what I'm saying? Taste can't be taught. So by pulling out of that first solo solo idea, what I was just kind of doing, I went from like a major scale into a pentatonic and kind of mixed the two together like I always do. I've done that on other videos too, where I've explained what I do with mix and matching scale configurations to create something different from them. That's exactly what I was doing right there. So that didn't really work. I was like, it just sounded kind of quirky. Didn't like it. I was like, okay. So the next time around on the second one, notice how much better it sounded? Because I was soloing, again, I was doing the scale amalgamation. So G major, went up, did some, up on the 12th fret, I'm sorry, 12th fret, 10th fret, and then bringing it up into that high position G, you know, on the octave. Working off, I do that a lot. I'll work off the octave, you know. Allman Brothers used to do that a lot. What was that? That was it. No, I haven't played that song in about 3 years. You know what song it is. I don't even have to say it. Well, that type of thing where, and actually that's really Dwayne Allman was kind of one of my earlier influences. Not so much that I'm trying to be like a country type of style player, but you do need to be open to different styles, and the Allman Brothers had a lot of great music in terms of blues and country and stuff like that, you know, classic rock. So yeah, I mean, some of those ideas that from like bands like the Allman Brothers give me ideas to expand my hard rock style, because now what I just did in that last solo, I'm not saying it's an Allman Brothers solo, of course not, but the idea of that solo came from that octave climb from Dwayne Allman back in the 70s. Everything new sounds like something old, remember? So, but that's really where that's where I had the idea come from. You know, that's just it. And you got to look to the greats. Everybody does, even people that say they don't, they're doing it. You know, and that's just the way it goes. So that's what works for me. What works for you as a guitarist, songwriter, whatever, whoever's watching this, non-musicians alike, who just follow my work. And I appreciate everyone who takes the time to follow my workshops, follow my music, my virtual stage performances. Don't forget to check me out on Reverb Nation under Basslightning, SoundCloud, YouTube channel is Basslightning 666. So I just have to throw that out there for those who haven't seen other videos where I've mentioned my other platforms and things that I'm doing with MP3s or whatever. You know, you can check those out if you want to crank something a little different from my catalog. I have a lot of songs in my catalog, you know, like hundreds. So, that I've written and produced over the years. Some of them just end up on the chopping block. Some of them end up into other songs. Some of them end up, you know, just being used in workshops like this. And some of it I transfer over to songs. Just depends on what I'm looking for. And the main thing, it sounds like I'm throwing a lot of jibber jabber at you at the same time. It's really just a simple thought process. It's all those things are happening, but really all I'm thinking is, what kind of chord pattern is going to work for this song idea? What kind of soloing should I do in it? Should it be real simplistic? Should it be all over the place? Should it be more complex? Should I, do varying scale amalgamations and things like that? And I don't think about it all at once. I just play it and see what works. I usually just play it, then analyze it later. I don't do that in reverse, because then you just overthink it. If I overthink things, they never come out the way I want them to come out. It's not sometimes, but most of the time, no. So that's why I do that. I do it that way. And again, it's just my thought process. Whatever works for you works for you. That's, totally your thing. So I'm going to try some more progressions here. Yeah, so as you can see in those progressions there, where I was doing the main groove in E, so to break it down, there's just too much stuff for me to just give it all to you, but I'll give you my basic concept in terms of what I was thinking during that solo piece. is, number one, I have to keep going back to the rhythm because I don't have another player to work off from here. So you'll see me switch back to the main core groove of whatever it is I'm playing often because I'm playing by myself here, you know, other than Mr. E drummer over there and Stinky the Bear. That's it. It's me, you know. So in thinking terms of pattern, I'm not always thinking in terms of pattern thinking. That's kind of like what I did way back when I first was beginning. But the same concept still kind of holds true today, really, as back to what I originally did back a long, long time ago. So, you know, if it isn't broke, don't fix it type of thing, you know. So what I was thinking during that solo was, what can I play that's legato feel, melodic style without overplaying? That's really what I was thinking the whole time. And no, I did the counterpoint. Remember the so in the legato feel, that's another thing that's really hard to teach. You have to develop that legato feel, and that's another technique thing. Is difficult to say the least. Or at least it was for me to grasp. So that's another thing. And when you're soloing, and a lot of guitar players do this, and it sounds awesome, but you have to master it, or it just sounds like a big muddled mess. So I'll see if I can demonstrate the difference between legato feel versus straight out note feel without legato. So. That's legato. What legato feel is you're basically playing, you're only striking the string. It's like twice in a measure. It just depends on the feel that you're getting. Sometimes it's more abrupt. Sometimes it's only once every couple notes. It just depends on the progression. I can't really tell you. You have to figure that out for yourself, what works and what type of feel you're trying to get. Now I'll play that same type of thing. You see how you see the difference between those two? Or at least I can. You can always do triads if you want. It's hard to do triads with a legato feel. I'm doing more like major, minor scale pentatonic stuff. So I'm only striking the string. See what I'm saying? I cannot teach you that. It's you have to figure that feel out for yourself. But the basis of it is, and again, depends on the progression and the feel that you're going for in the context of the notes and the scales that you're playing. But so if I'm doing a triad, which would be a major triad, a minor would be. And pentatonic. So it's really hard to do legato with. monitoring. But yeah, I mean, it just depends on the feel that you're trying to get, the context of the notes that you're playing, and you can't think of all that stuff. You got to just play. You can't be like, well, I'm going to go over it. You just play, develop the feel, learn the notes, learn the scales, learn the, and then you adjust it as through practice. That's really that's a big one. That's how I get my style of playing. That's how I get my style. You can see the difference when I'm picking each of those notes, the triplets and the sixteenths, and when I'm doing legato feel on those notes. There is quite a difference in how it sounds and how it's being presented. And the legato is a more difficult skill to master than just straight picking with because it sounds machine gun-ish, kind of like Steve Morse, the machine gun. That machine gun stuff kind of derived from Steve Morse, well, and others, but that's cool too. But again, it depends on the feel you're trying to get. It depends on what you're doing, and you need to develop the skills to be able to present that without it sound like a big sloppy, choppy mess. That's your job to practice, not mine. I have enough to deal with myself, with my own practice. So I'm trying to stick in the soloing framework because the rhythm is self-explanatory. That's, again, you still want to go with a good feel and go with, whether you're doing secular rhythms or you're doing single note rhythms or you're doing bar chords or you're doing full chords, major, minor, if you're diatonic or you're in the flats, it all depends on the combinations. With soloing, it's more technique and feel. So another thing is clarity. So if you're doing a lot of fast, like 16th notes and triplets and, eighth notes and, a lot of faster stuff, you certainly want to make it so it's clean. So it's not clean. So it's clean. And I've got to get going. So not clean. I don't mean not clean. I mean clean. All right. I got to go. So catch you all later. Thanks for checking out my workshop today. And we'll catch you all on the next one. Later, alligator.